Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. There is exciting news and heavy-hearted news today. The exciting news is that Truth Social is now available at the Apple Store. President Trump will once again return to social media to interact with his supporters. The heavy-hearted news is that Canadian democracy is dying with the eyes of the world watching. Peaceful truckers protesting were crushed by heavily armed police. But Canada's pastors sent an open letter to Trudeau reminding him of the warning from heaven. Hopefully he won't make another mistake. Okay, let's get into it. President Donald Trump's new social media venture, Truth Social, launched at midnight on February 20th, right before President's Day on Apple's App Store. On the morning of the 21st, it had quickly jumped to the top of the most popular free apps. According to Reuters, it seems that after the launch of the download, some users were unable to open their accounts instantly due to an overwhelming number of applications. Some users reported receiving a message when registering for an account saying, due to massive demand, "We have placed you on our waiting list. We love you, and you're not just another member to us." CEO Devin Nunes told Fox News, "Every day we bring on more and more Americans, and we're getting to you as quickly as possible." Truth Social combines the technology of a number of companies that position themselves as advocates for free speech, hoping to attract users who believe their views are censored by mainstream social platforms. Nunes said, "Honestly, it's just actually very moving for me to see people that are on the platform that have had their voice canceled, and that's our main goal here, is to give people their voice back." Nunes said that they should be fully operational by the end of March, at least in the United States. But in Canada, which was once a democracy, truckers who opposed the vaccine mandate were suppressed by heavily armed police like they were terrorists. Police began escalating their operation against the Ottawa protesters on February 18th and announced on February 20th that they had arrested 191 people and towed 57 vehicles so far. Retired Canadian military officer Tom Marazzo spoke at a news conference in Ottawa on February 19th, saying many truckers believe the best course of action for them and for their families is to evacuate in order to avoid further harm. Marazzo said, "As a movement, we have chosen to peacefully withdraw from the streets of Ottawa. There is nothing to be gained by being brutalized by police. It is a dark day in our history," Marazzo said. "Never in life would I believe anyone if they told me that our Prime Minister would refuse dialogue and choose violence against peaceful protesters. Even though the people have evacuated, the government isn't planning to leave them alone." In a media briefing on February 19th, Interim Chief Steve Bell of the Ottawa Police Service said that they will pursue the protesters even after the protest is over. He said, "If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely. This investigation will go on for months to come." Because of this, during the press conference, the good cop Marazzo choked up several times and was too upset to speak.
I never thought I'd see the day when law enforcement officers would be arresting citizens for the crime of exercising their charter rights and freedoms to free assembly and free speech. It remains to be seen if Canadian democracy can survive such an abuse of power.
Marazzo said, "Democracy is dead in Canada. Can you hear democracy? Democracy is dead now. It rings louder than the truckers' horns." My heart is as heavy as Marazzo's reporting of this story, but Canadians are brave. They do not give in. They will not be silenced. On the very day that the truckers were evacuated, a new protest began. Warrant Officer James Topp began his 2,600-mile journey on foot across Canada, starting at the Terry Fox Square in downtown Vancouver and ending at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Ottawa. He wanted to oppose the government's COVID-19 mandate, including mandatory vaccination requirements. Despite 28 years of service in the Canadian Armed Forces, Top knew he would be released from the reserves because of his COVID vaccination status. He is calling the campaign the March for Canada. Top and his team began their trek on the cold morning of February 20th in Vancouver, heading for even colder prairie weather and a great deal of uncertainty. His purpose is to do something to stand up for the people and for the country that he has served and loves. On his website, canadamarches.ca, Top stated, "We rise to serve Canadians with honesty, respect, and compassion for the purpose of reuniting our people. We do this with the intention of ensuring our government upholds the laws that support Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms." It's going to start off a little bit shaky, he said, but we will build momentum as we go. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the federal government will continue to enforce the Emergencies Act even though there won't be any more mass rallies in Ottawa and even though several Canada-US border crossings were reopened before the Act was even invoked. Debate on the use of the Act has been underway in the House of Commons over the past few days. The NDP supports the approach. The Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois oppose Trudeau's approach. Conservative Interim leader Candice Bergen posted on Twitter, "The rights and freedoms of Canadians must be defended at every turn. The Prime Minister, with the help of the NDP, are making a dangerous mistake by enacting the Emergencies Act. The majority of Canadian premiers of Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island have said the federal government's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act is unwarranted." Alberta Premier Kenney said he will be challenging the Prime Minister in court over the use of the Emergencies Act. He said that invoking the Act is unnecessary, it is an overreach on the government's part, and it is an intrusion into provincial jurisdiction. Civil liberties and constitutional rights groups have also launched legal challenges. The executive director of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, Noah Mendelsohn-Aviv, said in an interview on Fox that Justin Trudeau's emergency order bypassed the democratic process. Her organization intends to take the Trudeau government to court. She said, "Governments already have the lawful authority to address difficult situations and do so all the time. This use of the Emergencies Act is unnecessary, unjustifiable, and unconstitutional." Trudeau and his supporters condemned the truckers' protest as disruptive, but Mendelsohn-Aviv argued that even disruptive protests can be peaceful. She said some protests can even be disruptive. It is possible for a gathering to be both disruptive and also peaceful and nonviolent. Disruptive protests that may be unlawful, like blocking a pipeline or occupying a public space, can also be the most effective way of raising awareness for people who do not have power. She concluded, "It is in light of all these violations of civil liberties that we will be taking the government to court." Members of Parliament voted on the use of the Emergencies Act on February 21st. Before the vote, when asked if he will impose a party line for the vote, Trudeau said anyone who doesn't vote in favor of the move doesn't have confidence in the competency of the government. While not every Canadian supports the truckers' views, they support Trudeau's actions even less. A new poll shows that only 16% of Canadians would vote for Trudeau as Prime Minister again. The poll was conducted during the third week of the Freedom Convoy protests in Ottawa. A majority of Canadians say they are disappointed with the way Trudeau is handling the Freedom Convoy protests. His approach has only inflamed the situation. The poll said half, 48% of Canadians believe the Prime Minister has proven he is not up to the job of Prime Minister. The Wall Street Journal commented that a protest is not an emergency. Western leaders need to get used to dealing with civil disobedience rather than stomping all over civil liberties. I want to take a moment to thank you all for your support of Front Page. Every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. We've heard from many of our viewers that they don't get notifications of our videos anymore, so please follow us on Telegram, Gab, and Getter for the latest updates. Okay, let's get back into it. Pastors across Canada sent an open letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This is a powerful letter to all leaders in the world. I hope that they can think about the information in it and be prudent when making future decisions. The letter is a plea for peace and for respect for every individual's freedoms and rights. The pastors open the letter with, "We are writing to you as representative pastors of Christian congregations from across the nation and as law-abiding citizens who respect the God-defined role of civil government and uphold the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the highest law of the land, which recognizes the supremacy of God over all human legislation. They are concerned about the indefinite suspension of civil liberties, coercive mandates, and perpetual state interference in the life, freedom, and worship of the Church. Freedoms guaranteed by both our inherited common law tradition and charter." They address the missed opportunity when Trudeau refused to talk with truckers and resolve the situation quickly and without any extreme measures. They said that instead, you have insulted, denigrated, and lied about them, further dividing a hurting and broken nation. As ambassadors of Christ, they reminded Trudeau that he is not supreme ruler and that he will have to pay for his decisions. They reminded Trudeau that both you and your colleagues are public servants sent for a short time to Parliament at our behest as citizens to govern under the Canadian Charter. They went on to say that as Prime Minister, he does not have the authority to grant people rights and responsibilities that are theirs as free people. Since you do not grant them, you have no authority to remove them. The letter went on to say, as such, we as Christian pastors condemn in the strongest possible terms your unprecedented invoking of the Emergency Powers Act 1988 with the intent of bringing unaccountable state power to bear on peaceful citizens. The letter ended by urging Trudeau to step back from the brink, restore the constitutional freedoms of the people. You have not displayed a brotherly care and love for these honest, hardworking people who have tried to peacefully bring their very serious concerns to your attention. A total of 29 pastors signed the letter. We put a link to the full letter in the description below the video. Because many fully vaccinated people have also been infected with COVID-19, the Israeli government announced on Sunday, February 21st, that it will allow unvaccinated foreign tourists to enter the country starting next month. The Times of Israel reported that under the new rules, which will take effect on March 1st, foreign tourists of all ages, both vaccinated and unvaccinated, will be allowed to enter Israel as long as they submit a certificate of negative PCR test results before boarding and have another PCR test done after landing. Returning Israelis are not required to test prior to boarding, but only need to have a PCR test upon landing. Even unvaccinated Israelis are not required to quarantine upon their return as long as they test negative after landing. And countries around the globe are beginning to realize that rigid restrictions for COVID are no longer necessary. Buckingham Palace has confirmed that 95-year-old Queen Elizabeth II has been infected with COVID-19. The royal physician will continue to monitor the Queen. The Queen's infection has been linked to Prince Charles. The royal family announced on February 10th that Charles had contracted the virus for the second time. A few days later, Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, had also tested positive. Charles had met with the Queen just 2 days before the diagnosis. Buckingham Palace said the Queen is experiencing mild flu-like symptoms. She has received 3 doses of the vaccine. The Queen is the latest monarch to be infected with the new variant. Earlier this month, 82-year-old Queen Margrethe of Denmark and 54-year-old King Felipe VI of Spain were both confirmed to be infected. And as the virus continues to spread, it does not discriminate against anyone's situation in life. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.